Hi everyone and welcome to Pug in a Mug. And as always with these, you can tweak the colours and things like that you might want to with this session. I'm going to paint as I've done my original, so you can do the same as me, or you can adapt it to have different colours as you want. I'm going to start off by mixing myself two colours, this pale kind of beigey colour for our pug, and also the colour that I'm going to use for my mug. So for the pale beigey colour, what I'm going to do is find myself a brush, and I'm going to use some brown. So this is just burnt umber, some white and some yellow. This is just a standard kind of primary yellow, but any yellow will do really. Got some white, a very small amount of brown because that's quite strong and will overwhelm our white really quickly, and then some yellow. You can also use some yellow ochre if you want to. So I'm starting to get a bit of a mustardy colour, and then I'm going to grab a bit more of my brown, just using small amounts each time. If you've got a primary yellow and you're feeling that it's a little bit kind of cold coloured, if that makes sense, and you need to warm it up a little bit, you can always use a tiny spot of red as well to just kind of warm it up and make it a little bit of a warmer beige colour. So mine's kind of like a sand colour at the moment. So, and the next thing I'm going to do while I'm at it, just so I've got it, is grab myself some of my outline colour for my mug. So I've used red. You can use a pink, or you can swap the colours round. If you're more of a pink background person, you can do a blue mug or something like that. Okay, so give me a thumbs up, guys, when you've mixed your colours and you're ready to go.
My colour's more of a reddy colour. Not sure how to change it.
Which did you use? Burnt umber, or have you used a different?
Amber.
Okay, that doesn't look a million miles from mine, but you could just add a bit more yellow if you wanted.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no worries. Everyone else done? Give me a thumbs up when you're ready. Nope, still go. Okay, cool. So with all of these colours, because we're going for a pale one, do as you're mixing them, add just small amounts of your colours, because they'll just really quickly swamp anything else that you're doing. So I've got a definite sort of French mustard kind of colour going on here. So I'm just adding some water, and I'm getting it roughly to the consistency of yoghurt. So kind of not kind of thick like it holds shape, so but not so runny that it would kind of be like watercolour and run if I painted with it. Okay. How are you doing, Nikki? I'm saying Nikki, I know you're not Nikki. How are you doing? Is that looking better now?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, Tilly and Logan, you guys all done? Yeah? Yeah, we all ready? Cara, yeah, all ready? Yeah, awesome. So what we want to do, first thing, we're going to use our pug colour, and we're going to find roughly the middle of our canvas. So sort of here. And what I want to do is a nice big oval. This is going to be our pug's head. So we're going to go quite big and round. So it doesn't matter if you go too small to start off with. Let me turn that light down. There you go, you can see a bit better. So yeah, it doesn't matter if you go too small to start off with, because this is going to be the colour of our pug's face. And we're just going to get that nice oval shape. So give me a thumbs up when you've done that. Fantastic. The next thing we want to do is these paws. So these are almost like a teardrop shape, but they're kind of rounded off at the top. So we're going to go either side of our head like this and do our two kind of, I suppose they're like egg shapes, aren't they? And you can see they're smaller than the head, but they're just kind of pointing inwards like that. And then when we've done that, we're going to wash our brushes out. Okay. Yeah. Once we've done that, if you want to grab the colour that you're going to use for your mug, and also if you just pick up a second brush, because we're going to use that to give ourselves a guide to get a nice straight line. Okay, so I'm going to stick with my red colour. And what I want to do is basically I'm going to do a straight line that's going to come down either side of my pug's paws. But to make sure I get this nice and even, what I'm going to do is use my brush on the side of my paper or my canvas. I'm going to come in quite close to where my pug's arms, like paws, are going to be. I'm going to come down a little bit, and then I'm going to just give myself some dots coming down. So what I've done, I'm pinching the side of the brush and running my fingers along the edge, and this gives me this lovely straight line. So when I join it all up, it's all lovely and straight. And I'm going to come down to probably about a quarter of the way down from the bottom of the canvas, or a quarter of the way up, should I say. And then I'm going to repeat the same on the other side. Okay, so if you want to, you can go in with your paint and smarten that up now. So that's a really good way, just getting a really nice kind of edge that lines up with everything. And then, everyone okay with that? And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. So
mine's a bit further out from the paws than yours. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. So the other side, we do need to leave enough gap for our handle of our mug. So what you might find is that you see here, I lost the edge of it because the top of it, because the edge of our mug is hidden behind this paw. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to start a little bit lower, do exactly the same. The tricky bit with this one, though, is we need to line it up with our line on the left hand side. So when you think you're roughly there, or just before you think you're there, we're going to do the same trick. So I'm going to find the bottom of my mug, pinch at the bottom here and then move across, line it up with the other side, and that gives me my guideline there. And then all we do is just tidy that up a bit like that. You can use that technique for lots of things when you're painting sides of buildings, trees, all sorts of things, just to make sure you get a nice vertical line, or horizontal. It's great for doing horizons as well. So give me a thumbs up when you've done that. Cool. Oh, there was a thumbs down and it turned. Excellent. So the next thing we need to do is, we can see we've got this curve here at the bottom of our mug, and it's repeated up here at the top. So what we want to do is basically, to get a nice curve, we're going to paint another very flattened oval. And it sometimes helps to get this right by actually painting the top half of the oval as well. And that will help you improve your shape when you do that. So, and once you know that shape, we're going to repeat. So not the top half, just the bottom half down here. So we're going to come in from the top, go, imagine there's a line that goes across the pores. We're going to come down across like this. And then if you do have a little bit of your pore sticking out on your cup sticking out on the right hand side, you can join that up. If you don't and it's hidden behind your pore, then you can just leave it like I have. But what you want is this shape to be the same as what you can see of that shape up there. So we created like a tube, basically. Once you've done that, give me another thumbs up. Cool. The next step that we've got after this is this handle. So handles aren't just semicircles, they're kind of rounded at the top and they go down almost like a bit of a point. It's kind of like a heart shape that's been cut in half. So that's the next thing we're going to put in, just a guide at the moment. So from where your pore is, we're going to go up and out. So just like we're doing a heart shape, and we're going to come down to a point on the side of the mug, just like that. Everyone, oh wow, oh fantastic, looking good. What we're going to do next is basically we're going to fill in our mug, we're going to make our handle a bit wider, and we're also going to fill in our pug. So this is a point to use a nice big brush and just get those colours really blocked in. So the only thing you want to really not use your biggest, widest brush for is the handle. So I'm going to put another line of paint using the same brush as I've used with my guide. and just get a nice handle shape in. So make sure your handle is, oh, I just smudged it. Make sure your handle is the same width all the way down as well. So that's not a problem that I've smudged it, because our background colour will go over it. I'm now going to use my big wide brush, and I've got a, mine's a 3/4 inch. It's called a filbert because it's rounded at the end, and I can use my pug colour and my mug, Pug and my mug colour, and block those in. So everyone okay so far? Yeah? Awesome. So I'm going to start off by doing my actual pug colour, mainly because this is a pale yellowy colour and I don't want to end up getting sort of some red in it from the mug. So get that in. I'm going to then do my 2 paws. And then also I've got a little bit of body to go as well. So I'm going to join up the side of the head. So I am going to paint over the tops of my paws, but I can still see where they were, so that's fine. So my pug's now got a head, 2 paws and a bit of a body. Otherwise his head would just be kind of floating. So once I've got that nice and flat, I'm going to give my brush a clean out, and I'm going to switch over to my red mug or whatever mug colour you've done and pop that in. I'm just going to do it in solid red, and I'm going to put the highlight on afterwards. So I'm just adding a little bit of water, getting my red to the right consistency, and I'm just going to block this in. I don't think I've given myself enough red actually. I'm going to have to grab a bit more. So just using enough to kind of cover my canvas. I might have to switch over, actually I probably will have to switch over to my thinner brush when I go up and around the paws, because I don't want to smudge my colours. So I'll get as close as I can with my big brush, because I want a nice flat finish. The reason that we've done the mug and our pug first before we've done the background is because the colours that I've picked for the background are nice colours that go paint over and cover other colours really well. So that's why I've picked the colours that I have and to do them in this particular order. So I'm gonna just go round my paw with my slightly smaller brush. Don't be afraid to swap brushes. Painting with small areas with big brushes is really tricky, and just switching over to a smaller brush will give you a much better detail and you've got a lot more control. Equally, don't try and paint a large area with a small brush because you won't get a nice flat finish. So I'm going to give my brush a really good clean out. Get all of the red out of it. And then once you guys are all ready, we can move on to our background colour. So give me a thumbs up when you've done that. Cool. Double thumbs up. Excellent. When you are ready, you can start to prepare your background colour. So no rush if you're still painting in your mug. If you are ready to move on, we're going to move on to do our backgrounds now. So I've used a mixture of white and cerulean blue and a little bit of yellow to get my background. And then this colour is a stronger version of that with a little bit of ultramarine. So if you wanted to match the same as mine, you can do in that way. What we're going to do is basically, if you're sticking to the same as I've done, we're going to mix this colour here first, and then we're going to take a section of it and change it by adding some white and a little bit of yellow. What you might find, just something to keep in mind though, is you've got a lot of area to cover, so you're going to need quite a large amount of paint. So be quite generous with the amount that you mix up, because you don't want to run out of paint. So I've got some cerulean blue. I'm going to give myself some white. I've got some of my yellow still left over from earlier, and it's a very small amount that we're going to use. And I'm also going to get out a little bit of ultramarine, so, which is lucky because I've almost run out. Let's see if I can get a little bit out of this tube. Don't need a lot, just a little bit. So that should be enough. So I've got white, cerulean blue, so that could be, you might have a turquoise or cyan, cerulean, sky blue, any of those kind of colours will do. And then an ultramarine, which is any kind of dark blue, so you might have a cobalt or a Prussian blue, something like that, Windsor blue as well. Those are all darker blues. Anything like that is good. If you haven't got that and you've only got the one colour, then just keep with that colour as being your darkest colour here, and just use some white for the rest of it. So it'll be much more sort of monotone. So yeah, we'll get started with the mixing. So I'm still going to add some water to these. So I'm going to mix up my cerulean blue. So I've added a bit of water. I'm going to take some of my white. Oh, or not. Oh, I made a total mess there. So I'm going to start off by adding some white to it. Going to get to the colour I want. I definitely need a bit of yellow in there. I've got a nice turquoisey tone to my original one. So just mix up my colour. Grab some of my yellow from earlier and mix that in. Don't be tempted to go too mad, because you'll just end up with green. And that's not what we want today. So, well, you might want green. So if you wanted to, that would really clash with your red mug if you were doing green. So I've got a nice sort of turquoisey colour, which is, I really like that. And then I'm going to take a big dollop of that, move it to the other side of my palette. I like to use these paper plates because then I can spread my paint out. I tend to find that they make palettes too small for doing big loads of paint. And then I'm going to add a good portion of white, so we've got this nice paler colour. Okay, so we're going to paint in the top half of the background first, and we just want to be a little bit careful going round some parts of our pug. Some of this we're going to cover over, but we just need to be a little bit aware of some of the areas. The other thing we need to do is give ourselves this horizon line. Even though it's meant to be the edge of a table and a tablecloth, it's still a horizon. So when we do that, we're going to do the same trick as we did before with the second little brush and pinching it. So give me a thumbs up when you've got your background colours all mixed in. Yeah, excellent. Oh, I can see some of you already painting. So I'm going to use my second little brush, and I'm actually going to do this with a smaller brush rather than my big one to start off with. And I want to bring my horizon up a little bit above the bottom of the mug. And I'm just going to give myself just my little guidelines going across, sitting it, pinching along the bottom. I'm going to come to the other side of the mug as well. And this is a great way of making sure that your horizon line matches up on both sides. So that's always something that you get into your painting and then find that you've got one there and one up there. Maybe not that extreme, but you know what I mean. So I'm going to start just blocking in. I'm going to use my big brush again and then switch over to get my use my smaller brush for getting in round the edges. So I've got this paint roughly the consistency of yogurt again. And I'm just going to come in quite close, but not sort of so close that I have to worry about what I'm doing. So I'm going to keep a little bit of this colour back at the end because I want it for my spots. You can change that and have them kind of like polka dot if you want, like, you know, white polka dot, or you can do stripes or anything that you fancy. If you're going to do stripes, I think I'd personally do horizontal ones, unless you're particularly fancy a challenge of putting in perspective on stripes, which was not something I particularly thought I would try and do in a kids session. So, so I'm going to switch over now to my smaller brush and just go in around the outsides of my mug and things like that. So I'm going to make sure I come right the way down to my horizon line as well, and up the side of my mug. So the size of the mug is one of the bits where you just want to just take your time and get that really nice sharp finish on it. The best way to get a good edge is to have your paint a little bit sort of more watery, not watery, but fluid consistency. And also don't be tempted to have masses of paint on your brush. So it's better, you get lumps that way, and then you end up getting a wobbly line. So I'm going to go, even though we've got ears to put on, I'm still going to go all the way around on my pug's head, because the brown will cover the blue, so we don't have to worry about that. And we can just make sure we've got a nice edge then. And then I'm going to come down over that little corner where it comes in, to the handle meets the mug is a little bit tricky, so that's, take your time there as well. And I'm just gonna get that last little, so that's another heart, half a heart shape inside the bigger one, and join up my horizon. Cool. So if there's any bits where you maybe gone a bit wobbly and you need to kind of touch them up, or you've got any little bits that where your paint isn't sitting very flat, it's always better to just wait till it's dried off properly before you go over, because otherwise you do risk just pulling the paint off. So we can always come back and do any touching up bits later on. So mine's looking a little bit wobbly around there, so I'll just wait for it to dry off and have another go at it. Because we want a nice flat colour. So you don't want to use masses and masses of paint on that area, because on that, because you need it to dry off for us to paint our pugs some ears and things like that later on. So we're going to move on and do the sort of ground bit in a next, so, and then some work on our pug and our mug. So hopefully by then that should all be dried off for you. So give me a thumbs up when you've done. And then, yeah, it's Abby, isn't it? Is that right? Yeah. Are you done, lovely? Yeah. Okay, cool. Tilly, you okay? Yeah. Awesome. So, Cara, I think, are you guys all ready to? Yeah. Cool. So that darker colour, the darker blue that we've mixed up from here, what we're going to do is block pretty much 3/4 of it in, and then we're going to just start to add some of our darker blue as we go up to our horizon line. So this sort of, yeah, 3/4 of it is pretty much just standard, just the same colour. So add a little bit of water, and then we can start to get that blocked in. So again, don't be tempted to go too thick with your paint so that it takes forever to dry. It actually also makes painting more difficult, to be honest, because it's harder to control when you've got lots and lots of paint on your brush. So I'm gonna come right up, follow that nice curve that we did earlier on. So I need a little bit more water, it's starting to get a bit thick. And then I'm going to come up the side of my mug and I'm going to stop before I hit my horizon line. So I've got a bit of colour in there, like that. Make sure it's all nice and even coverage, nice and flat. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my darker blue colour and I'm going to add a tiny spot, really just the dip of a brush of my darker blue. And I'm going to start to just block in a little bit of that darker colour on each side. I'm just getting some paint on there rather than kind of worrying about getting right up into the corners of stuff. And then I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to add a little bit more of my darker blue. I'm going to get some of that paint on either side. And then I'm going to do it one last time. So I've got a really dark blue. This time what I'm going to do is switch over to my smaller brush that I was using earlier on. And I'm going to come right up to meet my background colour. I'm going to do that on both sides because I want those to be the same either side of the mug. And then I'm going to keep with that brush, wash out, or should I say, sorry, wipe out my darker blue colour. And then what I'm going to do is, this is actually a bit of a hard brush. Let's get a softer one. That one's better. And I'm just going to, using a nice soft brush, I'm not going to add any more paint to my brush. I'm just going to rub over what I've got and just start to blend it down into my paler colour, like that. I'm going to do the same on this side. So starting off up at the top with my darker colour, and then just start to brush it with a nice soft brush down to meet my paler colour. So we've started to get this nice kind of blend into the background. We're going to also use that darker blue just to put in a little bit of a shadow of our mug. So using a mixture of our darkest blue and our base colour, so this bottom kind of base colour, you don't want a massive difference between the two. And I'm just going to use that same soft brush and I'm just going to follow the line, the edge of the mug on the right hand side. So you can see I've just painted along there, and then I'm just going to brush out into my base colour and just pull the paint outwards, and that will give me this nice shadow. See, it fades away, and that's what we want. We want it to fade away as it comes away from the actual mug. Everyone okay with that? Yeah? Awesome.
Imagine the shadow, do you see the dark blue that we mixed up?
So yeah, you know this darkest blue that we've got right in the kind of the edge of our horizon? So yeah, we were using that. I couldn't really hear what you were saying. It was all distorting, but I think that's what you said. Yeah, okay, cool. So once you've done that, give me a thumbs up and let me know you're ready to move on. What we do as the next step will depend on what's dry on your painting. So if your mug is dry, give me a thumbs up. Yeah? Yeah. Okay. Is your background, the top half of your background, dry? No? Okay. So we got some no's and some yes. So in that case, what we're going to do is we're going to do our mug next. So I've used a paler colour in the middle. So it's up to you. You can just use red and white if you want to, or you can use a magenta and white if you've got that and you want it to be more of a pinky tone than a red. I'm going to use I'm going to use the magenta and white, I think. But equally, either one will do. I just quite like using magenta and red together, so they kind of clash a bit personally. I'm going to use a nice big chunky brush again. So make sure it's super clean. I'm saying that. Mine is very definitely in need of a clean before I move on. So make sure your brush is nice and clean. Give it a wipe out with some tissue and then a good wash. Get all of the blue out, otherwise you'll end up with lilac. I'm sorry, Abby, I didn't catch any of that. Pink instead of magenta. Yeah, yeah. I mean, with this, you could, if you wanted to, you could go sort of more red and orange than red and pink as well. So I'm going to use my big kind of chunky brush. I am going to, the same as I've been doing, I'm going to use the smaller brush up around the edges. And I'm going to use a touch of white, a bit of my magenta pink just to lighten it a bit. You can add a little bit of red to it as well if you want a slightly less kind of contrasty colour. And then I'm just going to paint. I need to go a little bit lighter. You might need to add a bit more white to your pink if it's not showing up. So, and I'm just going to run some streaks, some brush strokes along the middle. And can you see I'm just doing a bit of a curve shape so that it follows that curve of the mug. So I can switch over to my smaller brush again. Make sure that's nice and clean. And then I'm just going to do a little bit of that pink up around the top of the mug, just between the paws. So I've left the edges a bit kind of rough. So I wanted it to have like that kind of hand pottery look to it. And then what I'm going to do is just wipe out most of the pink on a tissue. And then I'm going to grab some white and I'm going to do the same thing just down the middle. So I'm still doing that curved shape that we were doing before. And I'm just adding a little bit. Oh, I've managed to grab a bit of yellow there. And I'm just doing this down the middle like that. So we've got a bit of a shine to our mug. You don't have to worry about this being too kind of perfect because we've got this writing to put on, so it won't overly show. Just giving a little bit of shape to our mug. I'm then going to switch it over and use those same colours on the handle. So if you have a look, I've got this lighter shade that goes on the top, and then at about this point in the middle, it switches over and becomes on the inside because this is the top part again. So I'm going to use my smaller brush again, and this is great if you've got any bits where you've gone a little bit wobbly if you're painting your mug and your background. This is a good point to kind of hide it. So I'm going to use my pink, go over the top of the handle at the top part, and then I'm going to switch, and the handle, as it's lower down, I'm going to have my pink joining lower down like that. And then you can do the same again as we've done. Just rub a little bit of white through the top there, and also just a little stroke of white in the bottom. So you might find that your red is looking a little bit light. It does tend to be a little bit translucent, just pure red out of the tube. So if you want to sort of really strengthen that red up, you can just go back over some of your red areas. So it's totally up to you. Some reds are really good and others are a bit tricky when it comes to that. So you can just pull a little bit of second coat of red. If you are doing that, I'm going to also just put in a little bit of a shadow under each of the paws as well, like that. And then I can go down. You can also tidy any kind of loose edges up as well while you do that. So it's starting to look like it's got a bit of shape and 3D-ness to it now. Got a little bit of white that I've just got into my background, into my ground colour, so just touch that up. So give me a thumbs up when you've done all of that. Cool. Tilly, you're getting a bit of assistance, are you? Cara, are you guys all okay? Yeah, fantastic. So we're going to switch over and start working on our pug next. And as always, we've got our simple shapes to work from. So we've got this dark muzzle shape here, which is kind of like an oval where the nose is, it's kind of been pulled up. We've got our big circular eyes, and we've also got these triangles for our ears. So we're going to switch over first of all to just brown. So I'm going to use just burnt umber. Any brown that you've got will do. If you're going for, if you've gone for like a black and tan kind of a pug, or any other colours, then use your darker colour for this. And actually a black and tan would be the other way around, wouldn't it? I think it would be lighter in the muzzle. So we're going to use our brown and our small brush from earlier, and we're going to just map out our shapes again. So first thing we need to do is find where we're going to put in our nose, which is going to be pretty much roughly the middle of our oval that we did at the start. So I'm going to find the middle, give myself a little spot like that. I'm also going to give myself a little spot that's going to be the points that I want to reach. So directly below that, if you find where your oval was, which was there, that was where you painted to, we're actually going to go just ever so slightly lower than that. So just a fraction lower, because the muzzle of our dog will be longer and sit lower than the head. I'm going to come out either side, so I want this to be roughly equal. Got these 5 dots, and then I'm going to start to join them up. So if it helps, you can do this as a diamond to start off with. Join those up as a diamond like that, and then we can start to round those off. So we're going to round off the bottom of our muzzle there. We want it to be pretty much the same on the right hand side. And then we're going to, so not such a curve on it, we're going to have a slightly straighter edge to the top of our muzzle. It's still curved, but just not as pronounced as the curve underneath. The next thing we want to do with our pug's face is basically our eyes. So we've got these big cute eyes. We're going to put them in brown for now, but we will be painting over them later on. So what you want to do is make sure that these are nice big circles and that they're even. So sorry, Abby, I didn't catch that. It might be easier. Sorry, lovely. It's just all distorting. It might be easier if you were to actually put something in the messenger for me. I've just realised mine looks a bit like a duck at the moment. I coloured my, oh, your muslin. Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, absolutely. With the darker brown. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. You can all do that now if you want to. I was just getting everything all mapped out and then we were going to fill it in anyway. So we've got these eyes. These are, the shadows around the eyes are like a teardrop that has been turned. So if you imagine that there's like a little triangle coming over each eye like that, and then we're going to go a bit bigger around. So I am going to paint these all in properly in a minute, but this is just to give us our basic shapes. And we're going to dry brush those edges out into the main body shape of the pug as well. And then finally, with our kind of mapping stuff out, we've got our triangle. So this does come above our head, because we've got this little, it sort of flops over. So we're going to get 2 triangles. This actually looks good. Looks better if you haven't got perfect mirror images of each other. So maybe make one, you want them to be similar sizes, but you can sort of change them and tweak them. So one's a bit shorter than the other and things like that, because it's not that often that they're actually kind of perfectly matched and holding their head absolutely perfectly straight on. So that is our rough kind of guide of where we want everything to be. And once you've got those in, then absolutely you can start to fill in some of your colours. So I'm going to switch over and use a kind of softer brush, add a bit more water to my brown, start to round edges off a little bit. So particularly on the ears, I'm going to come down and then I'm going to curve that bottom of that triangle off and then come back up. I want to do the same, just curve off the top of, need a bit more water, curve off the top of the ear. And then we want to add that extra little triangle on the side. Oh, I really am. Oh my goodness, did you hear my stomach rumble then? It's time for 11Zs, that's what it is. So I'm going to come in and then I'm just going to join up a little bit there, like that. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. So I want that little bit where the ear flaps, meets the body before it flaps over the head. So I'm going to round off that bottom bit and then come back up. So those are my ears all kind of blocked in, like that. And then I'm going to go around the eye. So I want this nice teardrop shape, make our puglet a little bit soulful. And then I'm going to block in the muzzle. Okay, what I'm then going to do is I'm going to use a dry brush. So I've got a clean brush and just around the eyes, I've got no paint on this at all. I'm just going to start to rub my clean dry brush around the very edges of the eyes, and that starts to soften it and give us this little bit of dry brushing, and it just helps to blend the colour out. You know how they have those kind of soft edges to their dark fur. So give me a thumbs up when you've done that. Yeah, cool. Excellent. Just wait for Cara to finish up and then we can move on. The next thing that we will be doing is putting some shading on our paws. So what you can do if you want to is if you've got some of your pug colour left, this paler kind of beigey colour, I'm going to add a little bit of my brown that I've used on the ears, and I'm going to just put a little bit of shadowing along the bottom of each of these paws. And then I'm going to take some white and I'm going to do a little bit of highlighting along there. We can also start to put in some of the wrinkles on the head as well. Oh my goodness, my stomach won't stop rumbling this morning. So what I'm going to do is take some of my first pug colour. I'm going to take a small amount of brown. I don't want it to be massively different between the two colours. And I'm just going to rub a little bit of that around the bottom of the paw. So if your mug is still a little bit wet, don't go right to the edge because you'll end up picking up some of your red paint. So I've just added that little bit of shadow. And I'm just, so I use kind of like one scoop of that brown, and then I just start to, using like hardly any paint, I start to bring it up so that I get this kind of rough, it's a really rough kind of shadowy look to it. And then I'm going to do exactly the same with a clean brush, give it a good wash out. And I'm going to do the same with some white, but from the top downwards. So you've got to remember where the top of our kind of teardrop shape was, and use some white and just start to bring that down. And that will give our pug's paws a little bit of 3D-ness, like that. I'm going to do the same using those colours. So I'm going to use my slightly darker brown, and what I'm going to do is in the middle of my pug's forehead, I'm going to basically paint in a bit of a Y. Quite small brush. So pug puppies tend not to have masses and masses of wrinkles, so I'm only going to put in a couple. And one on the outside, and then give my brush a wipe out, and I'm going to go with the white, just pure white, because white tends to sort of disappear a bit when it dries. So, and I'm just going to go in between the wrinkles of the white like that. So give me a thumbs up when you've done that. Yeah, cool. No, okay, no worries. So my question while you are doing that is your mug bit dry, or is that still wet? It's dry. Okay, awesome. That's the thing with doing these paintings, you have to kind of jog backwards and forwards depending on which bits are dry and which bits are wet. So is everyone's, Tilly, is your mug bit dry? Yeah, Cara, is you guys? So no.
Elena's having a few problems.
Oh,
No.
She went a bit ahead and got a bit lost.
oh,
I'm painting.
that's lovely. I think he's very cute.
I can't do the mouth or the head wrinkles, but it just looks like he's really angry.
Oh, I'm sure when we put all the eyes and everything on, it'll be fine.
And I can't cover it back up because the paint's dried out.
Well, that's the perfect time to cover it back, anything back up once it's dry. You can sort anything out with acrylics once it's dry.
I can't find how to mix the paints again, so I just stuck with a fluid painting.
It's not really, Elena.
I'm sure it's fine, lovely. Bring it a bit closer to the camera so I can see properly.
Hey, come on.
No.
I'll show them.
Everything can always be sorted out with acrylics. Oh, he's so cute. He doesn't look at all angry.
No, because I tried to rub out the wrinkles that I did, but it just because it made it angry. But I don't know how to do the wrinkles now.
But I'll do them in for you, Elena.
Okay, so what I think you need to do.
I'll do the mouth.
Of course you can.
So what I think. So you remember I did the shadows around the eyes where they were a bit like teardrop shapes with the points going in towards the middle of the forehead. Yeah, I think if you do that, that kind of makes them look a bit like sad rather than angry. Okay, so, and that shape's quite important to make them look cute. So all you need to do is make that shadow around the eyes into more of a teardrop shape with the point in the middle, and that will help. And then if you don't make the little bit with the wrinkles quite pale rather than too dark, then that won't look so angry. Okay.
Yeah, you know what you're doing now, Lena?
I didn't hear the last part because that thing fell down.
Okay, so what it was, so you're going to do the teardrop shapes with the points going inwards.
I heard that.
Yeah, and then with the wrinkles, use a pale brown so that they're not so dark and strong. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, it can always be sorted. Don't get frustrated.
I just got my white t-shirt covered in paint now.
Oh dear.
And it's new. It's a bit.
So don't worry. What I'll do, you go and sort your t-shirt out, and then I'll talk you through and catch you up. Okay. All right. Go and sort your t-shirt out, and then you can come back and we'll go through it. So what we will do now, if your mug is dry, you can put your writing on. If it's not, then what we do, just leave this next step and I'll come back and go over it again at the end of the session. The other thing that you can do is put your spots in, and your spots, what you want to do is have them smaller towards the top and bigger as they come down. And I'm going to use for both of these, I'm going to use the blues that I've used in the background. So for our Pug in a Mug, basically what you want to do is find the middle of your mug and find the middle of your words and line those up. So Pug in a Mug, including the space in between, you count that as if it was a letter. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the middle of your mug is going to go between the G and the space. The bottom is a mug, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the middle of your letter your wording is going to be your M. So what you want to do, you might find it easier to start in the middle with your wording and work outwards, so you don't have to worry about it all getting bunched up into one place. You can do that, or you can just paint it as you go. What I've done is put all these hearts and lines around it, so it doesn't matter if you haven't got things perfectly central with it, because you can put swirls and hearts and things like that on it to even it up. So the middle of my mug here, I'm going to start off and put in my G. So I'm using, for the wording, I'm currently going to be using my darker blue and a thin, not a thin brush, but a smallish brush. So I've got my G in. So the other side of my half of my middle was my space. So I'm going to leave a space and put in, and I'm going to just go. So this is what I mean about working outwards from the middle. So you've got your U there. Over here, I'm going to have my I. Over here, I'm going to have my P. So I can do a little sort of tail on the bottom. Like that. So I've got my P, I'm just going to tidy up that little corner there. And then I've got my N over here. And again, I can put a nice big swell on the end of my N. So a little dot, you can make that into a heart if you want to. And then I've got my A mug. I've brought my P down into a little swirl down here. So if you want to, you can kind of move everything over. But I'm going to start off with my M in the middle. M's kind of like 1.5 whips of a letter, really. So don't go too wide with it, otherwise you'll end up with no space. And then I've got my U. like this. And then I'm going to have my G. And that's going to come down and wrap underneath. And then I've got my A on the other side. Doing lettering is always a bit nerve-wracking. And then you can put in your swell. You can put those in wherever they need it, really. So if you've got a bit of a gap somewhere. And then you can start to put in some hearts. So I'm going to use a mixture for my hearts of my darker and lighter blue. You can also do some in white. That looks really good. So if you're not sure about doing a heart shape, a good way of doing it is a number 8 on its side with a triangle just underneath it. And I'm going to wipe my brush out and I'm going to do some with my paler blue now. So number 8 on its side. If you wanted to go really kind of technical with your painting, the edges of the mug would, the things would be narrower as they start to wrap around the side, but that's a whole other class in itself, just talking about wrapping things around circular objects, so or kind of tubular objects. So you can put as many hearts in as you want. I think I might leave it there with the pale blue and then give my brush a quick wipe, quick wash, and I can, just so you can see what I mean, it looks really nice with the white in as well. So the white just adds a really nice little contrast to it. So there, you can see, you can put as many hearts in as you like. Is your pug looking a bit less angry now? Yeah, awesome. Don't get upset or frustrated with it. Things can always be sorted out, particularly with acrylics, because you can just paint over them. Once you've got all your wording on your mug and you're ready, you can start to move on, as I was saying, with the spots. The only thing you want to keep in mind is if you place a spot in your shadow, rather than using your paler blue that we're going to use for all the others, make that one the same darker blue as you've used in your background. And then you're keeping that in keeping with that being a shadow. So I'm just going to use a sort of round brush. Make sure I've got sort of nice, in case your paint's starting to dry out a little bit now. Got nice sort of fluidness to your paint. And all I'm going to do, these are kind of like, you want them to be elongated circles. So I'm going to start to put some in. Might need to just tweak the edges a little bit, but by doing them elongated like that, you're creating the illusion of perspective. So, and then each time I do another row, I'm going to do them a little bit more spaced out and a little bit bigger. So I'm going to wipe my brush out and put in my dark one that's in my shadow, which is going to be sort of here. So you can see, although it still shows up, it does look like it's in shadow. And then I'm just going to keep doing ones. I'm not going to try and make them perfectly in rows. Again, that's a whole kind of technical sort of thing. So these are more of a random polka dot or random spot than a proper sort of lined up polka dot. Proper polka dots are very precisely lined up and things like that. So we're not going for that today. We're going for more random. So I need to make that one a little bit bigger. If you have more than one that goes into your shadow, then paint more than one in the darker colour. And I'm going to put a bigger one in here. Actually, I should have made that one a little bit lower, but that's okay. And this is definitely, if you're doing the recording, this is definitely something to kind of take your time over and get them really well spaced. It will have an amazing effect on how 3D your painting actually looks. So I'll get into the really big ones down here now. And here we go. So I've got a real line going there with my ones. But that's how we do our polka dots. And you can see they look like they're disappearing off into the distance. So give me another thumbs up when you've done your dots. So if you were to, if you did decide you were going to do a striped tablecloth, the same principle, the principle's still exactly the same, which would be that anything that's higher up would be narrower, and as it comes down, it would get thicker and more spaced out. So if you're going for a stripe rather than spot, then you are an absolute sucker for punishment, and I would love to see how you've got on with that. So that would definitely be something I would do with a ruler and measure out if I was doing it with stripes. So when you are ready to move on to the next step, you're going to need a little bit of black. So when you're ready, grab yourself some black paint. And just give me a thumbs up when you're ready. Yeah, awesome. Tilly, yeah, you got some? Yeah, awesome. Cara, I think you're still going with your spots. Yeah. Okay, cool. Shall I? Are you kind of nearly done with those? Yes.
That's okay. You can carry on. I'll listen while I'm doing it.
Okay. So all we're going to do next is, using some black, we're going to put in our eyes, our nose, and our mouth. So I'm going to use a smallish brush, and I want to get a really nice big circle for the eyes. The bigger the circle, the cuter our dog will look. So if you do small little circles, he won't look as cute as he will if you do big ones. So you might find that you kind of, with mine, I've not gone over the muzzle. I've kind of cut the eye off at that point, so that we're telling anyone who's looking at our painting that the eye goes behind the muzzle. And I'm just going to block that in. So we're going to go round that with a little circle of white as well. But while I've got the black on my brush, without putting any more on, I'm going to leave myself a little bit of a gap where my white's going to go, and I'm just, with a little tiny bit of paint, so this isn't at all solid, I'm just putting in a line around the outside. I'm not sure if that's showing up very well. I'm also going to do the tips of the ears. Again, a small amount of paint, and just paint in the very tips and rub that up with a small amount of paint. So just the very ends of our ears. I'm going to then go over to the other side and do my eye. So regardless of what you've done with your shadow, sort of not your shadow, but your darker brown colour, you want to make these eyes match. So take a little bit of time to get those nicely even size-wise. Might be a case of you have to go back to the first one you've done and tweak it to match the second one. But certain things when you're painting are really worth just taking a little bit of time to get them perfect, and that's definitely one of them. And then, just like before, with no extra paint, I'm just going to rub a little bit around, leave a gap, and then go around the outside, and that's going to give me a bit of a shadow on the eye. Tip of the ear. So this is quite handy if you've gone a bit wobbly or not quite happy with your ears. You can just do a little bit like that. Mine's got massive eyes, oh my goodness. In between the eyes, we've got our nose. So again, the basic shape of our nose is a triangle. We're just going to pop that little triangle, make it quite small, so it's kind of playing with the sizes. And then I'm just going to round the top of the triangle off to make my nose shape. I'm going to bring a small line down from the nose, not too far, and definitely not a thick line, like that. And then I want, they've kind of got this chin that comes up. So whereas a lot of other dogs kind of their mouth goes down like that, our pug is going to come up, meet that small line that comes down from the nose, and then come down. If we want our pug to look happy, just turn up the very edges. So what I mean is, we're going to come like this, up, we're going to go across. Oh, I haven't gone wide enough with that, really, I've gone a bit wrong. And then down like that. Oh, mine's got a very wonky smile. So I'm going to change that like that. So if you want your pug to look happy, just bring up each sides like that. I'm going to correct my little mistake with some brown. So even I go wrong sometimes, and just, there we go. See, now he's looking a bit better. And yeah, that's looking much better. And then I'm going to give my brush a bit of a wash out. I'm going to let that just dry off a little bit before I come back and do the white, because we'll end up with grey around the eyes and stuff. If you want to give your puppy a little flower crown, you can do that now. You can use the colours, any of the colours that you've used elsewhere is a really good idea for that. Just again, make sure you've got a really clean brush. A round brush is good for that. And if you want to go with using the reds and the pinks from your mug, what I would do is still add a little bit of white to your red, because your red won't want to sit over the colour that's underneath it. And all I'm basically going to do is do like a little star shape. So you can do 3 or 4. And each one I'm going to do, I'm going to have as a slightly different shade. So see, hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing there. So I might go for a pinky one next. I'm not gonna do yellow, because yellow is just a colour that doesn't like going over any others, but you can use your yellow for the middles. It would work quite well for those. And I'm going to do my last one with my red and a little mixture of pink in there. So I'm going to leave those to dry off and then come back at the end and put my middles in. Everyone doing okay? Does anyone need me to recap anything? No? Awesome. The next thing that we do need to think about is our pug's collar. If you want to put a collar in, you can. You don't have to. And you can do it any colour. I did mine red and pink, but looking back at that, I think it doesn't really show up. It's not obvious enough what it is. So you could use something like, say, your dark blue that you've used down here. That would work really well. It's always a nice idea to use colours that you've got elsewhere in your paintings. It really helps to tie a painting together and make it look like a whole, rather than kind of like a couple of different paintings that have been stuck together. So I'm going to use my darker blue. So I'm going to come out from the side of the face. So do you remember those ovals that we did before? Right at the start, I'm going to come down over the tops of my paws, and I'm also going to stick it out a little bit. So you might want to use, you can use a little bit of your darker blue if you want, in the corners, in the edges. So you've got a real kind of difference between the background colour and the foreground, and and the background and the collar. And then you can see the collar will go underneath your chin here. It also helps to make it obvious where the paws finish and the body starts. So that's quite a handy little tool for doing that. you have some silver or some gold, you can do a little tag, a little name tag and a buckle on your collar. If you don't, you can mix up a grey, just a small amount. The thing to remember about grey is that it dries darker than it appears when it's wet. So don't go too dark with your grey, and kind of think about, if you want it to be silver, definitely go lighter. So I'm going to put in a little, I'm going to use grey for mine here. So, and as this dries, you can do a little heart-shaped one if you want, or a round one. As this dries, it will start to get a little bit darker. So I'm going to do a heart shape, which is my little figure 8 laying down on its side with a, I'll make that a little bit darker just so it shows up on screen, I think. Yeah, a figure 8 lying on its side with a triangle underneath. So here, I've probably gone very dark with this, but so it shows up on the screen a bit better. Shows up on camera. There we go. So once that's dry, you can paint a name in it. That doesn't show up any better. Oh well. And you can put a little sort of holder going up to do your buckle. You go a little kind of semicircle with a line through it, and then a vertical line next to it. So I'm hoping that's shown up a little bit. So give me a thumbs up when you've done your name tag. Cool. So when you are ready, we're going to add some white. And actually this is the part which will really bring our pug to life, because at the moment that's looking, mine is looking a bit on the scary side with no highlights in the eyes. I don't know about you guys. So adding a catch light and a bit of basically an iris will make a massive difference to our pug. So using just pure white, I'm going to go round the outsides of my eyes like this. Starts to make a massive difference straight away. So you might find, if you're a bit wobbly, that you want to go back over your black and just get a nice, if you've gone too thick with your white or you've had a bit of a wobble in it, if you do, then go back over it with your white, and then your little catch light, this bit here, which is super important and just will bring your whole pug to life. Wait until it's dried off and then have a then add it, but don't forget about that. It really will make a massive difference to anything, humans, creatures, anything like that. Whatever you're doing, that little catch light, that little reflection is massively important and will change your, I mean, you can see the difference between the two with and without it. And as soon as I put just that little spot in there, it just brings, so you can do two like that. You can put a little one in the other corner as well. So just makes our pug look very cute and alive, and it's the shine on the eyes that makes a massive difference. We've got a little sticky up snaggletooth triangle sitting like that there. And you can also, if you want, while you've got your white, if you want to put white or yellow middles to your flower crown, I'm also going to put some little spots around it, so so it's got some little kind of tiny little buddy flowers as well. If you want to with your white, you can also just do a little highlight on the heart shape of your name tag as well. So give me a thumbs up when you've done that. No, not yet. Or was that no, not directed at me? So when you do your name on your name tag, obviously you can change it to whatever you want. If you feel more confident writing it with a pen than painting it with a paintbrush, do that. It's, you know, it's your painting and you can adapt to however you feel more comfortable. A lot of people paint their signatures on their paintings with paint, and others find it easier to do it with a pencil or a pen. So I personally tend to do it with a pencil or a pen because I've got a very kind of complicated loopy signature and surname that I can't really kind of break down to be very easy. So I tend to paint, I tend to not paint my signature very often, but actually do it. Because there's nothing worse than you've done a lovely painting and then you get a big blob on your signature and mess that up. So last couple of bits that we need to do. So if everyone gives me a thumbs up when they're ready. Yeah, cool. Just you being speedy, Abby, at the moment. Does anyone need me to go over and recap any bits? No, all good. Excellent. God, I've gone really big with the eyes on this second one. He's trying very hard to get some treats, I think. The last thing that we're going to do, we'll be using a little bit of our brown. So if your brown has dried up, just grab yourself a little bit ready. And what we can do, actually, while we're waiting for that, if you are going to put your name, your dog's name, whatever it might be. So I think I'm going to call this one Doug. So it's Doug the Pug, because I think if I had a pug, I'd probably call it Doug as well. So I'm going to use my very finest brush and just really lightly put in. So use really small amounts of paint because you don't want it to be all thick. My paint is still a little bit wet. So I'm going to put D-O. U. My paint's too wet to do that really, but so you can have Doug. There's my Doug the Pug. But like I said, if you feel more confident with it, do it with a pen. So what has everyone got names for their dogs? Has anyone thought of a name yet? No? I can't think of anything else that rhymes with pug than Doug, name-wise. So I do like a nice rhyming name. So the very last thing that we're going to do with our fine brushes again is just these little dividers between the toes on the paw. We're going to put a little bit of a line that goes between the paws and the body, so that people know that these are different things. So with a fine brush, I'm just going to do two. They can be quite sort of blobby because are not a bit uneven, because our dogs, you know, their paws are furry, and their toes tend to not be a totally kind of sharp line. So you have a little bit of the kind of fluff, toe fluff. And then I'm going to just go along the side here and here. So just anywhere where the paws and the body kind of meet, so that you know that there's something different. You can do a little bit down the side as a shadow if you want to as well. And that's it. So I think I'm all done with my Pug in My Mug, and I'm going to stop the recording there and go to my live painters and have a chat and see how everyone's got on and recap any bits that need doing. So if you are doing the recording, thank you for painting with me. And as always, would absolutely love to see how you've got on the Artists Hangout. If you need any assistance or help with anything, then please just either drop us a little message or put something on there. We're always very nice and very kind and very constructive with our help there. And I'll be back, I think, tomorrow and Thursday. I am doing the flamingo and I am doing the washing lines. So I will see you soon.